In his essay, Meditation in a Toolshed, C.S. Lewis talks about the difference between seeing a thing from the inside versus the outside, using the example of a beam of light streaming through a gap in the door of a dark toolshed. While observing the beam from the outside, he sees the shape of the beam, its origin, and the dust motes dancing inside it. While standing in the beam and looking along its length, he sees through the gap in the door to the leaves of the trees and the sun beyond. In my mind, this is the perfect example of why it's so important not only for us to be able to think both objectively and subjectively, but why differing opinions are so important. Far more important, actually, than the opinions of those who agree with us. Every individual experiences a unique mixture of circumstances and environment that shape their worldview. This happens mostly without our knowledge, as a natural part of adapting to and making sense of our environment, and goes on to become a filter through which we experience the world. This filter informs our thoughts and beliefs, and those thoughts and beliefs become central to our understanding of who we are. Self-identity is crucially important to us as humans because we live in our own heads, and since dearly held beliefs are cornerstones of identity, any attack on our beliefs becomes an attack on our identity. But this self-preservation mechanism has a flaw because it stops us from thinking critically about our own beliefs, even as it encourages us to dismantle the beliefs of others. Self-preservation at all costs. But we live in a society, which means living with other selves, and in order for society to progress for the good of all selves, to provide us with all the benefits of society and minimize the drawbacks, we must have discourse. This makes dissenting opinions not just important, but absolutely vital. Because each of us is, in some ways, blinded by our own biases and prejudices, we need others to challenge our beliefs and bring new experiences and new thoughts to the table. When trying to understand the beam of light, you cannot get a full picture from either standing inside or outside of it. You need all perspectives. But the experiences that build our beliefs are powerful and affect our emotions in ways that shut down the logical parts of our brain. You cannot think about the experience of a thing while you're experiencing it, because as soon as you do, you stop experiencing it and start reflecting on it instead. It's not until afterward, when people have had a chance to consider their experience, that they're able to describe what it was like. We are rarely in a position to have seen all sides of an issue, and if we want to understand the beam, we need to hear from those people who have been inside it as well as those people who have only seen it from the outside. You'll often hear people say that they have seen an issue from all sides, but that's rarely true, because those of us who stand inside the beam can never forget what it's like to be in the warm sunshine. And those experiences will always color how we understand the beam, even if we are able to step outside of it. This is both a strength and a weakness. A strength because we may have a fuller picture of the beam, but a weakness because our understanding of the beam will always be colored by other things, such as our height and what time of day we stood in the toolshed. Our experiences, beliefs, biases, prejudices, habits of thought, etc. will always color the way we think. We have to recognize that so we can appreciate that our opinions may be just as subjective as anyone else's, and realize that if we are ever to increase in understanding and find solutions to problems, we must not only hear differing opinions, but honestly consider them. This is another reason free speech and the open sharing of ideas is important. Humans are pack animals. We are tribal by nature. We seek out those groups we can identify with and feel safe with. This is normal, natural, and beneficial. We may identify with one tribe like writers or CrossFitters or dog lovers, or we may identify with many. But because identity is tied to our beliefs, and our beliefs are colored by our environment, and our environment is created by our tribe, a group of people that share a set of ideals similar to our own, we can often be caught in echo chambers. People who spend all their time in echo chambers hearing only support for the views they already hold stagnate. They cannot grow because growth requires change, and change is uncomfortable, if not outright painful. Change requires self-reflection, a willingness to be wrong, to own your mistakes, and the dedication to do the hard work of reform. But none of that is possible if your beliefs aren't challenged. Think of the humans who changed the course of history for the better. They were often the dissenters, the radical thinkers whose ideas flew in the face of popular opinion. They were willing to entertain ideas outside of what was common or comfortable. But the price of expressing a dissenting opinion is the price of attacking the beliefs of someone else's identity, the price of being outside the tribe. Ridicule, scorn, and excommunication aren't uncommon. In fact, in our current social climate, they're the norm. We are quick to eat our own when they happen to have opinions that don't jive with the popular views of the group. When we do this, we are shooting ourselves in the foot and removing the best tool for growth we have. If people stop expressing themselves out of fear, if we silence people we disagree with through social violence, we're leaving ourselves open to the same treatment when our tribe stops being the one in power. And the trail of disillusioned, angry, betrayed former tribe members will join with the groups we formerly fought against. We're effectively recruiting for the other side. And that is the final benefit of not only allowing but welcoming dissenting opinions. They force us to defend our beliefs or change them. If we have the courage of self-reflection, those differing opinions force us to consider the validity of the ideals we've long held dear, to defend them if we can, and if we can't, to decide whether to change. Not all opinions hold equal weight, of course. A subject matter expert is likely to have a much more solid basis for informing opinions than someone with only a cursory knowledge of a subject. But all opinions have value, if only as clues to understanding someone else's worldview. They help us see the nuance, to understand that there are infinite shades of gray, to recognize that there is always more than one side to a story. If I want to understand the beam of light, and I've only ever seen it from the outside, I shouldn't shout down those who have stood inside it. I shouldn't silence those who have studied the particles that float in it. I shouldn't deplatform someone who is standing outside the shed and can see the sky responsible for allowing the sun through. No single person will ever have the whole picture through pure experience, but we, as a society, might be able to better understand the whole picture if everyone has a voice and isn't afraid to share it. All great social progress has been achieved by those willing to stand up and speak, and from speaking to act. That doesn't protect anyone from the consequences of their opinion should they choose to speak. But I hope it encourages people to be brave, not just brave enough to speak, but brave enough to listen. Brave enough to consider when they've been wrong, brave enough to allow others to have a voice and to realize that allowing someone else to speak doesn't diminish your own voice.